Hi, how are you?
Um, well, this unit has some frustration right now, and it's very much related to what you just said, which is perfect. Perfect. You manage to do this every time. So, Sunday mornings is when I attend my local one Buddhist temple. And today was my role to be up on the stage in front of the YouTube cameras, sitting there, and then introducing one of the reverends who gave a Dharma talk. And over the last few months, I've been getting a bit frustrated with the kind of backwards teaching that I'm hearing there, that everything is about what you as the person has to do,
Yeah.
even though one of the core teachings of Buddhism is there's no such thing,
Yeah, right.
right? And I never hear that part of them teaching at the temple. And so that's starting to, you can imagine that's starting to rub up against
Yes. Yes.
clarity that I'm getting here.
Right. Yes.
And today he gave a talk. He called it catalyzing enlightenment, and I thought that'd be interesting. And it was about how can you notice little things in your everyday that can help you sort of further down your path of enlightenment. And they were all coming from the perspective of the unit, sort of thing. And then at the end of these talks, um, there's usually like a 3 or 5 minutes where everyone sort of just gets together in small groups and chats about it. And then sort of that's the end of that. And so normally I'm involved in the chatting with someone else, but because I'm sitting up on the stage, I decided for some reason today, or rather, well, oneness decided that John was just going to sit there, close eyes, do some centering, because John's been reading a lot of Christian mysticism, right? So there's this sort of just centering and just listen to the noise of everyone chatting. And I'm doing that. And the more I centered, the more silence I was able to notice on the inside, if you like, the louder all this noise got around me. And it got so loud. It was like every mind in the universe was shouting at me all their opinions about enlightenment and everything. And I was just like, no, just be quiet. Just be quiet. And so it's got me all sort of wound up because I had to explain to a couple of friends afterwards that I might not be going there on Sundays anymore, right? Because it wouldn't be authentic for me to do that,
Yeah.
you know. And but it's been very important to me having the clarity that's arisen through those teachings there has been extremely important. But there's a realization that at some point you've got to get off a hamster wheel. You've got to see that you're stuck on a hamster wheel, and then hopefully that realization will then allow oneness to do something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so it was kind of a mixed. It was strange because I was thinking, I'll just sit here quietly, and then there was just like, oh, that was a good message, thank you. Yeah.
So you need to notice these little things, and here's how you do it.
Yeah, it was like, oh my God, this is my mind chattering on steroids right now, and it's just coming from everyone else in the room. It was so profound.
Well, we needed all of that, you and I, and everybody else in here. We needed all of that so long as we did, and we both got a lot out of it. And it's part of the trail here. And when we get here, sometimes, particularly in the moments just following an initial awakening, or maybe even yeah, pretty much just an initial awakening. But there, with a big initial awakening, if there is one, because they don't have to be big, they don't have to even be hardly noticed. the but the noticing, like in this case, instructing the hamster how to get off the wheel is not the same thing as getting off the wheel. And having other people in the room say, hey, look, you're on a wheel, doesn't really do it.
Mm-hmm.
The hamster's got to notice that the room is full of wheels and that everybody's on a wheel, on that wheel. And then each individual hamster has to notice, my God, I'm on a wheel. And then step off. It doesn't have to throw salt over its shoulder or meditate or anything else, right? To get off. It just has to get off. And you don't get off because, I mean, the start of it may be because you believe you're off, and that's true. But belief is not the core here. It is important when it is, but you don't have to believe in non-duality you don't have to believe in the one thing in order to be the one thing. The one thing does not need your cooperation to be the one thing. It just, it needs you, if you will, to, in order that it might experience the sensations here, right? And to have a Fredness life, which knows Susanness. Fredness and Susanness have a long-standing friendship, except for that we don't, right? We are the same thing, and we both know that, but we still enjoy being friends on whatever level this is. So it's not about poo-pooing relativity. It's just about putting relativity in its place, which is that this everyday experience is perfectly fine. We want to honor it, and we want to and pay attention and do the best that we can. And that's the point of it, is just to do the best that we can. That's all that we're asked to do. We're not asked to do anything more or less. And we're not really even asked, we're told, or we're directed, if you will. But it feels like we're being asked in the same way that it feels like that we're being asked to surrender, but there's no one here to do the surrendering. There's the only thing that can surrender is that ultimately the absolute has to surrender to relativity, because this is it. And whether the relative experience is pleasant or unpleasant, it doesn't change this. So I try to get on board as much as I possibly can. And this is like, who does this? How do you do it? And I'm kind of back to that, but I'm just saying that there is that there is a perceiver, there is a perception of pain that feels like it's going to someone. Feels like it's Fred's pain, Fred's surgery, Fred's pain, Fred's arm, Fred's this, that, and the other. None of that is actually true. And recognizing that that is not true and accepting the fact that the pain is here, but it's not mine. It might be Fred's, but I'm not Fred. I'm not a Fred. I'm not, I am the whole thing, not the one thing. And that's the total flip of perception that has to happen here. We cannot come here as, well, we can, because I think we all do initially, but we don't initially, we may initially come to non-duality as the single thing, the body that is what we feel like. And so we think it's the body that's coming to non-duality in order to wake up the body. And the personality apparently contained within the body. And then we find out there's no one home. That the body is here, but it's not it's inhabited, but not by a Fred. There's Fredness. There are patterns, specific patterns. They began in, if not before, they began in DNA, and they've expressed themselves in their various manners here. And all of that's well and good. It's beautiful. We can be grateful for it. I'm very deeply grateful for my wife, my dogs, this teaching, my house. I mean, but I don't need any of these things. I don't.
So,
I don't mean that arrogantly at all. I mean that as the one thing. I don't need anything because I've already got everything.
so you're mentioning about pain and the feeling of pain. Does that also then apply to the sense of kind of feeling identified with the unit? So as long as you're aware that there is a sense of that identification occurring, you're you're not like trapped in the identification, right?
Right.
Because one thing that's puzzled me a bit, or that's needed clarifying, is this you know, when you hear that, well, you're identified with the unit and you aren't the unit, well, does that mean at some point there's just going to be this mysterious, strange experience that you've never had where you're not remotely even aware of the unit and stuff? And of course, I'm trying to conceptualize everything and like just leave it alone. You don't need to really try and fully understand it. But the conclusion that was arrived at here was, well, locally, oneness has this Johnness about it, and that's just how it is. And there, so Johnness will appear to be there. It doesn't mean that the clarity is being lost. Okay.
Rainbows don't show up with intelligence, but they do show up. We can see them, we can experience them, we can enjoy them, but we can't weigh them. You can't weigh a John, you can't weigh a Fred, because there isn't one to weigh. We can weigh John Ness, we weigh, or Fred Ness, we weigh this unit. We can say that's what Fred Ness weighs, but we're talking about sort of the colors of the single rainbow. Yeah. And we're not really talking about anything specific, although it may feel like it at the time. If we stick with this long enough, we're going to find out that there are specific feelings and specific projections, and there's specific experiences and all that, but it's all of the one substance. It's all of the one thing. Like you can see Alexis and her dog are one thing, right? And it looks like two, but it's not. It's one heart. It's one love, and it's everywhere.
And and also this, we talk a lot about the imaginary character, but the imaginary character is still an aspect of oneness.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be.
Yeah.
And it's only an imaginary character seems to be about the best concept that we can come up with from within that imaginary character to explain what the imaginary character is.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what we could almost say. That's what we're allowed to know. And this we want to be careful that we don't make a character out of the imaginary character, which is that we start blaming our shortcomings on the imaginary character, because the imaginary character has no shortcomings, but it has no long suits either. It's nothing, and it weighs nothing. It measures as zero. It takes up no volume, and it simply is not. So when we talk about the character, what we're really talking about is how much identification there still is here. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I haven't experienced anything beyond this, is that so long as there is a body, I don't see there's any way that there's not a sense of being a body. I mean, there's a sense of being a thing, a particular thing. There's going to be that sense. There's a sense of Fredness here right now. It's not taken seriously. It's not dwelled on, but there's still a sense of fredness here, and I'm not trying to get rid of that or hide it or anything else. It's just that's the way it is until it isn't, right? And for all I know, isn't could be 10 minutes from now, or it might be never. But I don't have any sense that it's fixing to end.